for sure going to Dallas. I mean, it's ironic that Dallas trades Luka and they're rewarded with the number one overall pick. Isn't that insane? The NBA has become nothing but a soap opera. It's just a soap opera at this point in time because when it first happened with Zion, when he was supposed to go to the Knicks, if I'm not mistaken, they finished with like the worst record or one of the worst records in the league. But it was like for sure he was supposed to go to the Knicks. And the Pelicans trade Anthony Davis and they were rewarded with the number one overall pick, which turned out to be Zion Williamson. And from that point on, I knew the NBA was turning into a joke. And it's been going down ever since Kevin Durant decided to join the Golden State Warriors. Now, how do you let that happen? But David Stern vetoes Chris Paul going to join Kobe Bryant and Pau Gasol. It's crazy. The NBA is a joke. But back to the bright point of this particular topic. That is Cooper Flag. Cooper Flag reminds me a lot of Paul George in terms of his play style, not his mentality. Hopefully he doesn't turn out the way I don't know what happened to Paul George. When he was with the Indiana Pacers, Paul George was looking like a two-way beast, someone who could become a superstar. And as soon as he got traded, it just went all downhill from there. I think that trade kind of messed with him mentally, and he hasn't recovered since. And we got what we got with the Clippers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Crazy. Dylan Harper will be the second pick, possibly off the board. Rumored to go to the San Antonio Spurs, but the San Antonio Spurs at this point in time really need to consider trading that pick. When you look at their roster, they're already full of 6-foot guards. Dylan Harper is 6'5". What you gonna put him at the 2 spot? You already got a rookie of the year that's at the 2 spot or the 3 spot. You got Devin Vassell, Steven Castle. It's weird with the Spurs. I don't know if those guys are interchangeable at the 2 guard and the 3 spot. But either way, he just doesn't make sense for the team simply because he's 6'5", and you already got De'Aaron Fox, you got Devin Vassell, you got Stephon Castle, who won Rookie of the Year. And what do you... He doesn't fit. What they need is someone to help out. I would say help out Victor Wembanyama in the backcourt. Because Harrison Barnes is old. Julian Champagnie, whatever. Hey, they need something. In my opinion, the Spurs really they got all they needed from the draft. Right now, they probably need to shop that number 2 overall pick around the league for a star veteran, an all-star veteran, a veteran that is all-star level. They probably should have traded for Kevin Durant, now that I think about it, even though I said Kevin Durant is a bad fit. But when you look at the roster for the Spurs, they got De'Aaron Fox, they got Vassell, they got Castle, they got Shohan, if I'm not mistaken, he starts at the 4, and then you got Victor Wembanyama. So the Spurs, if they don't shop that pick, I don't know why you would add another wing player to the roster when you already full of wings, but you can never have too many wings, I guess. With that being said, VJ Edgecombe out of Baylor, 6'5", another 6'5" player. Then you got Kon Knopo, who I heard a lot watching, of course, Duke. You got Ace Bailey, which is ironic that they're probably the same in terms of wing play. And they got Ace Bailey being drafted after Kon Knopo. That's weird to me, but that's what happens when you look at these draft boards to give you a good idea of where people or where players will end up. We got Trey Johnson at 6, Jeremiah Fears at 7. Okay, now I'm just throwing darts at the wall and hoping it lands on the bullseye. The NBA draft has become a joke. The NBA, in terms of overall watchability, has become a joke. To end this thing out, now you could probably call me ignorant or whatever the case may be, that the draft has now become boring. You guys remember, but I'm not that old. But I remember the NBA in its golden era. Right now, we're in a dark time in the NBA. It's not even fun to watch the NBA. It's not even that fun to talk about the NBA anymore. But let me make this point. Back when picks 1 through 14 was exciting to watch, and you knew every player by name. These last couple of years, since the one and done era, and thanks to John Calipari, because he destroyed the one and done era. Since the one and done era started, it's the NBA's fault. Had the NBA let players get drafted straight out of high school, simply because we need to see, and players need to be humble, because it's not that many LeBrons, it's not that many Kevin Garnett's, it's not that many Dwight Howards. I'm not saying Kobe, because Kobe wasn't a starter when he was drafted out of high school. He was actually carried by Shaq. But it's not that many players. So let these players get drafted. Remove that restriction. Now, I know you want to help the college game, but remove the restriction. You can always add it back if it doesn't benefit the game. But right now, it's hurting college basketball. It's hurting college. It's just hurting me. I was about to say football, but football is so many opportunities. It feels like, but it could be even. If I'm not mistaken, football has more rosters, so it has more players. So players can afford to stay in college 1 or 2 seasons, or 3 seasons. But now that I'm realizing these last couple of seasons, as the the household names of the top picks in the lottery are no longer household names. Out of the first couple of picks, we'll probably know a player. But after that, it's the draft like it used to be. We had Anthony Davis coming out of the draft. You had Ben Simmons' class. You had Blake Griffin's class. It used to be exciting to watch 1 through 14 to see what they're doing. Now when I look at 1 through 14, I'm not even sure who these players are. Because the college, and you, like I said, you can call me ignorant, but I'm not the only one that feels this way, and I'm not the only one that's going through the dilemma right now. Even when I watch the college game, it's exciting, trust me, but it's not, maybe because I'm getting old, and I don't sit down, it can't be that, because even when I didn't watch the college games, I knew 1 through 14, I knew what school they went to, I knew how they played, I knew whether they were good or not. It's the one and done era kind of ruined the NBA draft, and it's ruining the NBA as a whole, simply because they haven't allowed players to get drafted. If you allow players to get drafted in high school, then if those players fail, whatever team they drafted to and fail, and we see this constantly, then players will start to say, you know what, let me go the college route instead of trying to go to the NBA and possibly not panning out. And add some stipulations in the next CBA. If the player doesn't perform, or, well, you probably won't be able to do it, because I don't think the Players Association is going to go for that. But I would say, have some type of stipulations outlined in the contract for if the player gets drafted out of high school, and they don't pay, so you won't be stuck with paying, the base salary of the lottery picks, because it's gonna be high. And say if you draft a player like a Kwame Brown, or like what's that dude that got drafted? Out of Anthony Bennett. And then the player that got drafted to the Sixers, he never played down, and then he got traded to Atlanta. I forgot his name. But he was a And to this day, I'm still trying to figure out why the heck we didn't draft him when we have Ben Simmons. That was crazy. That's the same thing that's about to happen to these Spurs. For the most part, man, and even when these players get drafted 1 through 14, can you name all of the rookies, all of the lottery pick rookies from this past season? But for sure, you can name the top 14 players in NBA right now. You could probably do that. I can do that. But outside of Stephon Castle, just because he won Rookie of the Year, I don't know who made the All-Rookie first, second, or third team, or third team. Simply because the one and done era at this point in time has gotten so saturated and has gotten so bad that now when you decide to go 1 through 14, back in the day, 1 through 14, sometimes they made immediate impact. And you kind of say, that player, he can pan out anything. And last year was probably, I'm glad that Cooper Flag is being drafted this year, because if not Zachariah Richardson, whoever that is, I know who but that has to be one of the worst #1 overall picks in the past. Markelle Fultz, that was his name. That pick has to be worse than Anthony Bennett. If you're gonna draft a player like that, you need to make an immediate impact. Any player that you pick #1 overall needs to be in the hunt for the Rookie of the Year. There's no reason why you draft a player #1 and 20, 30 games in, he's not even looked at as a Rookie of the Year. Terrible stuff. 12 points. Rebound. This man made no impact. And Atlanta wasted a pick. I would rather trade that pick for all-star caliber draft. Victor Wembanyama was a hit. Paolo Banchero was a hit. Cade Cunningham has turned into a hit. When he first came into the league, he was looking shaky. Anthony Edwards a hit. Zion Williamson a hit. Great Ayton should have been a hit. I don't know what happened with that, but it is what it is. That's a miss. Markelle Fultz, a miss. Ben Simmons, a miss. Karl Towns hit. Andrew Wiggins, a hit for what is worth. He is a champion. And once he left Minnesota Timberwolves, and went to a competent team, you saw that untapped potential get tapped into. Anthony Bennett, extremely broke. They just need to delete the whole entire 2013 season. That was crazy. Because if you look at 1 through 14, none of these players are in the NBA as starters. Okay, Anthony Bennett, Victor, Otto Porter, out of the league. All these players, Kobe Zeller, out of the league. Out of the league. New Orleans Noel, out of the league. Ben McLemore, out of the league. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was the 8th overall pick, 2-time champion, if I'm not mistaken. He's in the league. Trey Burke, I think he's floating around in the league, for the most part out. CJ McCollum in the league. Michael Carter Williams, Rookie of the Year, disappeared. Steven Adams still in the league. Kelly Olynyk floating around in the NBA, but somewhere out of the league. Shabazz Muhammad, out of the league. Giannis Antetokounmpo was the 15th overall pick, and Dennis Schroeder, ironically, was picked 2 picks later with the 17th pick. So, for the most part, the 2013 NBA draft, most of the players that were picked in the lottery aren't even in the league. It's crazy. Anthony Davis hit. Kyrie Irving is a hit. I would say once Anthony Bennett got drafted, that's when the NBA draft and the one-and-done era started to destroy the NBA. 2013. But then you had Kevin Durant join the Golden State Warriors, which made the NBA even more of a joke. That's crazy. So, the last player to be taken out of high school, getting back to my other point of allowing players to come out of high school, and it can either go one or two ways. It can go good for the NBA in terms of if you start letting players come out of high school and they excel within their role.
Well, I can't remember a time there's been
It's
this
good for
much
the NBA.
excitement
It's
around
good. We
Rutgers
don't have to
basketball.
wait and
It certainly
see
led with Ace
players
Bailey.
waste
He
their
fits the
time
mold
in
of
college.
an NBA
We can actually
superstar.
enjoy the college
Ace Bailey
game,
is
seeing
a
as though
big-time talent.
we're seeing players
Bailey,
that
what a
have to
feed
be there,
and the
that
flush.
want to be there, and that need
Oh
to
my
be there.
goodness.
So they're gonna
Bailey
play better.
looking in the rim
Because
on that one.
they're going to realize, hey, I wasn't good enough to
Quarterback
get drafted
getting
straight out of
better
high school.
helps when you've got
Boom.
stuff you
That
can't
way.
teach.
And it can backfire. It can fail. Now you start having players like Kwame
Oh, Bailey
Brown,
can't beat
Michael
that.
Oliver Kenny, even though he didn't. I'm just naming
Step back.
terrible players
Adds
that got
to it.
drafted in the
Oh,
lottery.
that is the cherry
and,
on
they
top.
flamed out. So for the most part,
Almost blocked.
when players
Good
were
fight
drafted
inside
out of
from the
high
freshman.
school, outside of
Ace Bailey,
Kwame Brown,
6'10",
in
incredibly
2001,
talented.
we had
Has
some
all
hits.
the physical attributes for what you
Especially
would look
after
for in
Kwame
an
Brown
NBA
was
two-way
drafted out of
player.
high
Great
school and
size,
it
great
flopped.
athleticism, has
The next
shot-making
players to get
ability.
drafted out of high school.
6'10", he's highly
LeBron
skilled,
James
and you could argue
Dwight
one of the
Howard.
best athletes in all of
Back-to-back
college
drafts,
basketball. But it's
back-to-back
really his
first
offensive
ballot Hall
versatility
of
that
Famers,
sets him apart. He's
back-to-back
able
dominant
to create scoring
man.
opportunities from just about anywhere on the floor.
And I will say
This week, the Most Valuable Player Award goes to Don Knipple.
They had to pick somebody to fight for this team. In a brawl, one-on-one, it will be Con Knipple.
Knipple fighting off of the screen. Came open and hit a three.
A projected lottery pick. So much talk about Cooper Flag. But and rightly so. But Knipple should have been season.
So Knipple launches and hits again. Knipple has 18 this season against the Hurricanes. Finds the open man. Knipple bang on the one.
As the Duke Blue Devils, number 2 in the country, undefeated in the ACC.
And a three-pointer on target by Knipple.
He said, give me the rock. I feel it, baby. I feel it.
Knipple catches fire. He's got it. A three.
Picked around. Knipple gets it back. Puts it up. It hits.
Arizona needs to stop here.
Knipple for three. Big shot.
Don Knipple doesn't need much space.
Stolen by Knipple. A three-run to the rim and a punch it down.
Knipple's been really good. This has been his hand.
Knipple a three. On doing it. Pulling his leg to keep him out. I'll tell you what.
Tennis shoes, huge nails. Malaya, Jones, couldn't catch it, literally knocked away. It was totally open the floor. Shot.
Sweet swing for three. Way up seven.
Catching shot. Yardage. Kansas three.
Chelsea got one serve. Boxing two.
Showing the Brooklyn Nets versus the Utah Jazz. Nobody watching that except Brooklyn Nets fans and Utah Jazz. Back in the day, the Brooklyn Nets and the Utah Jazz, that would have been a game you would watch on a random Wednesday night. A random game. And even though Cleveland was bad at one point, Clippers were bad at one point, Chicago was bad at one point, Portland, Toronto, Walker, all these teams before
They had to pick
the Dunn era started, they were still watchable. Now you can't watch a Wizards game. You can't watch a Utah Jazz game. You can't.
So much talk about Cooper Flag. But rightly so.
Knipple launches and hits again. Knipple has 18 points this season against the Hurricanes.
finds the open man. Kniffel back on and flies in.
Duke Blue Devils and Blue Foundry undefeated in the ACC.
And a three-pointer on target by Tom Kniffel. Second
Gets the ball in the air. Doesn't go in that way.
Kniffel catches fires. Got it. A three.
Picked around. Kniffel gets it back. Puts it up. And hits.
Arizona senior stop here.
Kniffel for three. Big shot.
Don Kniffel doesn't need much space.
Stolen by Kniffel. A three rush to the rim. He'll punch it down.
Kniffle's been really good. This has been his hand.
Kniffle's on the water trash. Doing it in both
Appears to be okay.
They drafted Jahlil Okafor, and you already got. Oh no, they drafted Jahlil Okafor before. I'm tweaking. I should have said 2015. 2015. Who did they draft first? Yeah, I'm definitely tweaking. Okay, they drafted Joel Embiid first, and then drafted Jahlil Okafor, which is crazy. Then after that, they followed that up with Ben Simmons. So my point is, the NBA allowed themselves to become a joke, allowing trust the process to happen. After the second year, after Ben Simmons was drafted, they should have said no to tanking. No to tanking. And it was pretty clear they were tanking for Jahlil Okafor as well, but after Joel Embiid, they was probably tanking for Joel Embiid too. It was terrible. But, like I say, even bad teams back then were fun to watch. I remember watching Philly game. If I remember Tony Wharton Jr., I would watch him because at any given time, he would have a 30-point game. And you would be like, wow, 30-point game, 40-point blowout. But I just remember vividly, even though they were tanking at that time, even though it was in the midst of the era of one and done, I still remember at that time, it was still somewhat entertaining to watch bad teams. These last couple of seasons, watching bad teams in the NBA is not even exciting no more. Like, you could watch a bad NFL team, you could watch a bad soccer team. Hopefully I'm making sense when I say this. It's not entertaining to watch the NBA anymore outside of the top teams and once the playoffs roll around, because during the NBA season, it's just boring. And it's just got like this last couple of years. Now people are waiting to Christmas to tune in, Thanksgiving, because those games are exciting just because of what's surrounding it and at the time you're watching them. Not only that, the All-Star break is not even exciting anymore. It's crazy, man. The NBA has become nothing short of boring. So, back to my original point, 1 through 14, you'll probably know that based off what happened last year with Rashard Zishrixar being drafted to the Atlanta Hawks, come on, man. The draft has become a joke. Allow players to get drafted out of high school so we can see whether or not it'll work. If it doesn't work, put a cap on it. You guys only allowed players to be drafted out of high school we only seen players be drafted out of high school with the number 1 overall pick, starting with Kwame Brown in 2001 and ending with Dwight Howard in 2004. But let's not forget some of the amazing high school talent that came out out of high school. If I'm not mistaken, we got Kevin Garnett, if I'm not mistaken. Kobe. I can't say Kobe. I'm not going to add Kobe. I'm going to add all of the surefire hitters. Jermaine O'Neal, T-Mac, Amari Stoudemire, LeBron James, Dwight Howard. Now, I'm not naming Kobe simply because Kobe didn't start right away. Most of the players I'm naming, they made an immediate impact in terms of starting. I ain't going to say immediate impact. I'm just going to say they started. You got Kevin Garnett. You got Al Harrington, Rashard Lewis, Darius Miles, Deshaun Stevenson, Tyson Chandler, Eddie Curry, Travis Outlaw, for people who don't know, go do your research. He was decent. Kendrick Perkins. Yes, Kendrick Perkins was drafted straight out of high school and he won a championship, I think his first or second year. Sean Livingston, Sebastian Telfair, I think that's the Celtics grade if I'm not mistaken. Al Jefferson, Josh Smith, J.R. Smith, Darrell Wright, Martell Webster. Yes, I'm showing my age, naming Martell Webster, Portland Trailblazer legend if I'm not mistaken, especially on NBA 2K9 and 10 with Kobe and KG on the front respectively. Andrew Bynum, Gerald Green, CJ Miles, Monte Ellis, Lou Williams, Andre Black, Amir Johnson. Now, I'm naming those last two because I remember them vividly. They were solid starters. So, that's all the way from 2000. Well, I think players could always be drafted. Daryl Dawkins, 1975. I think I should go to the black and white days. I think players could always be drafted out of high school because I see I'm not too sure. I'm not going to say that because I'm not too sure because I see the first ever player to be drafted out of high school with the not the number one overall pick, but Daryl Dawkins was selected the 5th overall pick. And I think he's a NBA legend, right? If he's a Hall of Famer, he's an NBA legend. If he's not an NBA legend. Did he make the Hall of Fame? He's got a nickname like Chocolate Thunder. If you got a nickname like that, you better be in the Hall of Fame. Better be in the Hall of Fame. He's not in the Hall of Fame. That's insane. Well, he only averaged 12 points, 6 rebounds. Okay. Never made an All-Star game? Dang, he has. Okay, yeah, my bad. I'm not going to mention Daryl Dawkins. I can mention him right along with Kobe for impact. But, Kobe's career panned out. So, for the most part, 1975 was the first time we seen a player get drafted out of high school. Then you fast forward all the way to the 90s. And dang, I messed up earlier in the video when I said 2001 when they first started. But that's how long it's been. And I can't believe I said that because KG was drafted. Wasn't KG drafted with Kobe? How could I forget that? Dang, I messed up. But a good way for me to bounce back. That's why you got to do your research when you're on these topics. And if you mess up. Don't be like some of these picked 27th. Dwight Howard in 2004 was number 1. Sean Livingston was number 4. Robert Swift was 12th. Sebastian Telfair was 13th. Al Jefferson 15th. Josh Smith 17th. Atlanta Hawks legend. Detroit Pistons okay, I'm tricky. 18th. J.R. Smith 19th. Darrell Wright, journeyman but solid player at one point in time. 2005, you had Martell Webster, who was 6th. Andrew Bynum 10th. Gerald Green 18th. C.J. Miles 34th. Monte Ellis 40th. Lou Williams, 6th man of the year legend. Lemon Pepper Lou went 45th. Andre Blatch went 49th. That's a Nets legend. Brooklyn, yeah, he was with the Brooklyn Nets. Yeah, early on. Amir Johnson was 56th. So that just goes to show you all of the picks that were drafted. Didn't name the no names because they don't deserve to be named. Now, with that being said, the NBA draft, hopefully it gets better, but I don't see it because these last couple of years, if it's not the number 1 overall pick, 9 times out of 10, because I got to say that because of the pick from last year, Richard Richard from France got drafted by Atlanta, which was one of the worst selections in the history, probably worse than Kwame Brown. Other than that, it's a bunch of non-household names. These players aren't popular. Outside of Cooper Flag, we really don't know who these players are. And that goes to show you how you as an organization, as a, y'all would call it NBA organization, can mess up your own, how would you say it, viewership, or your ability to be entertaining. You can mess up your own entertainment value. You can crush that. Because, man, the NBA draft used to be exciting to watch. The NFL draft, we only watched that last year simply because we wanted to see where number 2 actually was headed. Who's now number 12? For the most part, man, like I say, can the NBA bounce back from this? I don't know. The one and done era has kind of ruined college basketball. So, and could it be the fall of hoops mixtapes? When we see college kids in high school have a mixtape before they get to I don't think that has anything to do with it. I just think players who just go to school for 1 year, who are ranked nationally in high school as the top, player, they use that and think they're good enough to get to the NBA. But as you guys can see, these last couple of drafts, there are a lot of misses more than there are hits. A lot of misses, man. And I'm just going to go down memory lane. Just give you guys a good idea of these misses I'm talking about. Zachariah Richardson last year, we starting off 2024. Alex Sarr. All these players. Alex Sarr, was he decent this year? And these are bigs that are getting drafted, only coming in averaging. He showed some flashes. I'm not going to lie. He showed some flashes. Reed Shepard. Stephon Castle won Rookie of the Year. He was the only bright spot in his class. Donovan Clingan, Rob Dillingham flamed out. Everybody was overhyping him. Oh, he's going to be a starter. Oh, my God. He plays. Coach knows more. Coach knows best. If he was really like that, the coach wouldn't have any choice but to start him. He couldn't even beat out old man. I forgot his name. But y'all know the old point guard. He's been elite for like 40 years. They need to get rid of him. He's done. Let me be clear when I say that, because I got to get his name right. He played from Memphis. Where is it? Mike Conley. You couldn't beat out 40-year-old Mike Conley? Zach Edey, Cody Williams, Matthias Buzelis, Nikola Topic. Devin Carter, Bob Carrington, Khalil Ware made an impact in Miami, if I'm not mistaken. Jared McCain was the only bright spot. He was about to be the rookie of the year before he went out with his injury. Dalton Knecht, only because he plays for the Lakers, that's why we know him. But as you guys can see, this draft was terrible. Now we're going to 2023, 1 through 14, and a couple other picks that I know. Victor Wembanyama, Brandon Miller, a lot of people overhyping him. Oh, he's going to be Paul George. Oh, my God, he looks so terrible. Scoot Henderson, Amen Thompson, and Asir Thompson. Great draft. Solid player. Should be all-star. Next season, you better be an all-star. Amen Thompson. What I seen from him against the Warriors, if Jalen Green would have matched that, they would have beat the Warriors. They would have won. But Jalen Green flamed out. Anthony Black, and I'm not mentioning any player where we see flashes. I'm talking about bona fide starters. So with that being said, you only got Victor Wembanyama, Amen Thompson, or Asir Thompson. Even though these guys were coming off the bench, they couldn't be bona fide starters. They are bona fide starters. Based off what I saw from both those guys in the playoffs, bona fide starters. Now, with that being said, keeping it going, Baleel Kobley, Jersey Walker, what has he done? Taylor Hendricks, Cason Wallace, terrible. Now, he's with OKC. That's the only reason why we're talking about him. In the playoffs, this man was terrible. The coach started him against Indiana. This man had 6 points in 32. Terrible. Get him out of here, man. Jet Howard, Derek Lively, solid. Is it only because he played with Luka? I can't say that because he beat out a veteran that's been in the league a while, actually. He beat him out for the starting spot. What's his name? I gotta put some respect, but I gotta make mention of him. Dwight Powell. He's 30-something years old, been in the league for 10 seasons. You mean to tell me Derek Lively came in and took his spot? Gotta make mention of his name. And that's it. Now, a lot of people say, well, it's more players you can... No, that's because you know them. I'm talking about bona fide household names, players that we see and you say he's a starter. He's a good player. Now we go to 2022. Paulo Banchero, Chet Holmgren, Jabari Smith. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. But like I say, we're not naming any players that are showing flashes. Keegan Murray, starter, solid. Benedict Mathurin, first couple of seasons was a little shaky. But Indiana, they drafted him, and he's developing. Is he a starter? I don't think he's a starter. I know, but as who's he going to be able to start over on that squad? Who? He's in my opinion, if he's on any other roster, well, I'm going to mention his name just because he's in the finals and he was impactful. Who else? Dyson Daniels, been in the league a while. He's coming along. Jeremy Shohan, he's a starter. And Jalen Williams, all-star. Jalen Duren, starter. That was the 13th pick. No need to mention anybody else. So, as you guys can see, let me go to a draft where we was like, oh my God. What was that draft? Was it when Kentucky sent like 45,000 players to the draft? Was that 2012 or 2011? When was that? Kentucky had like the most players drafted in the first round. The first round. What year was that? Was it 2010? I think it was probably this draft here. We had John, and look at these names. I'm gonna go back to 2009, just to show you guys how exciting the draft was. Picks 1 through 14, where we knew every player in the lottery by name. We knew what school they went to. Most of us did, for the most part, before the one and done era. So I'm gonna start at 2009, even though I can go back further than that. I'm gonna just show you how the league has destroyed itself, and players have destroyed the league with this one and done era as well. So 2009, 1 through 14, Blake Griffin, Hasheem Thabeet, James Harden, Tyreek Evans, Ricky Rubio, Johnny Flynn, Steph Curry, Jordan Hill, trash, but hey, I got to name him. DeMar DeRozan, Brandon Jennings, Terrence Williams. A lot of people don't remember him, but I remember him. Gerald Henderson, Tyler Hansbrough. Thought he was going to be a lot better in the NBA, but it is what it is. Earl Clark. That's the 2009 draft. For the most part, either some of those players were starters or most of them were starters. Now we're going to 2010. I think this was the year where they had to, oh no, it was one year Kentucky had like 8 players get drafted in the first round. I know Kentucky has the record for most players drafted in the first round. So we're going to 2010. John Wall, Emmett Turner. And as I'm naming these players, you could probably picture what team they got drafted to, an impact moment they had, whether a nostalgic moment, whether you were playing 2K9, 2K11, whatever the case may be. You have some nostalgia, running through your veins right now when I name off these players. And I'm going to show you how bad the draft has got and how these players, we don't even know most of them outside of the, probably the number 1 overall pick, not including last year. So keeping it going, John Wall, Emmett Turner, Derek Favors, Wesley Johnson, and you could probably tell what players have panned out and what players have not. DeMarcus Cousins, Ekpe Udoh, Greg Monroe, Al-Farouq Aminu, Gordon Hayward, Paul George, Cole Aldrich, OKC great, Xavier Henry, Ed Davis, Patrick Patterson. Xavier Henry, probably shouldn't have named him, but got to name him because my point still stands. That's like one person who didn't at least play a game or made an impact moment or have a nostalgic moment for us. Here we go. Kyrie Irving for the 2011 draft. Let me show you how much the talent continues to dwindle as we get further and further. And I'm going to tell you guys the year the one and done era started. Kyrie Irving, Derek Williams, Enes Kanter, Tristan Thompson, Jonas Valanciunas, Young Vesely, still trying to. When he got drafted, everybody in Washington was mad, even if you weren't a fan. I just remember that. That was a terrible pick by the Washington Wizards. Because look at all these names that I'm about to name that could have been drafted before him. Bismack Biyombo, not saying him, but I'm naming him because he was solid. Brandon Knight, Kemba Walker, Jimmer Fredette flamed out, crazy. Klay Thompson, Alec Burke, Markieff Morris, and Marcus Morris were both drafted one after another. I remember all these, watching these players in college, they had storylines surrounding them. Kyrie Irving at Duke, even though he was injured, you kind of already knew. If you watched him in high school, you knew. Derek Williams in college made an impact. Tristan Thompson, didn't know too much about him. Brandon Knight in Kentucky. I remember at this point in time, Kentucky was not too good, but it went up and up. Kemba Walker, champion, NCAA champion. If I'm not mistaken, I remember that nostalgic moment when he hit that step back game winner. Jimmer Fredette was doing what we saw Caitlin Clark do in the W. Jimmer Fredette is the male version of Caitlin Clark, but she panned out in the WNBA. Of course, it's the WNBA. If she was Jimmer Fredette, the Spider-Man meme, Jimmer Fredette, Caitlin Clark, that is what it is. That's how exciting it was to watch Jimmer Fredette in college. He never panned out. I'm still trying to figure out how. Jimmer Fredette is like Johnny Manziel. In college, they were good. Back to my point, the storylines surrounding 1 through 14, players 1 through 14, for the most part, if they went to college, because Jonas Valanciunas, Van Vesely, Bismack Biyombo, Enes Kanter, they didn't play college ball, probably didn't know anything about them. But for the most part, I'm focusing on college players. They had storylines surrounding them. Klay Thompson, not too much hype. Alec Burke, not too much hype. Marcus Morris and Marcus Morris, because they went to Kansas. Kawhi Leonard, a lot of people, I remember vividly, a lot of people had questions about Kawhi Leonard and could he pan out. He was drafted by Indiana, but traded to San Antonio. What better organization to be traded to for a player like Kawhi Leonard? Had he went to Indiana, I don't think he would have panned out. And that's just keeping the storylines going, man. 2012, we had Anthony Davis. Need I say more? Anthony Davis starts us off. Anthony freaking Davis. He was the first player I seen with my own eyes. Before playing an NBA game, he was invited to the Olympics. If you guys remember that, you had Dwight Howard, Chris Paul, Anthony Davis. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Deron Williams was there. Jason Kidd was there. Kobe. I remember it vividly. This man, straight out of high school, was invited to the Olympics. Straight off the cusp of winning an NCAA championship. Anthony Davis, so many storylines around him. Before he played an NBA game, he played on the NBA Olympic team. I know it's not the NBA Olympic team, but technically it is. But it's Team USA. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, to this day, I'm trying to figure out why the heck was he drafted number 2 overall. That jump shot was the worst jump shot I've seen in my life. And he lasted in the NBA for a while, too. Bradley Beal, Dion Waiters, Thomas Robinson, Damian Lillard, Harrison Barnes, Terrence Ross, Andre Drummond, Austin Reeves, Miles freaking Leonard, Jeremy Lamb, UConn. If I'm not mistaken, he won a championship with UConn with Kemba Walker. I could be wrong, but I remember him. If I'm not mistaken, he played with, what big he played with? Dang it, I wish I remember that big. I forgot. Kendall Marshall. And let me tell you one thing about Kendall Marshall. I'm so pissed because I thought he was going to come in and have an impact like Jason Kidd, because he reminded me so much when he was with UNC of a veteran floor general point guard type. And I kept thinking, Jason Kidd. He had some decent games here and there, but for the most part, he didn't pan out. But I remember John Henson, Milwaukee, and it's crazy. John Henson played on the same team as Giannis Antetokounmpo. And just think of Victor Wembanyama when you think of John Henson. Not play style, but in terms of alien type of, player. Maurice Harkless, Royce White, and I'm not even going to revisit that storyline. That was crazy. The 2013 draft. This is where the one and done started to take over the NBA. And this is when the NBA started to kind of falter in terms of, still we had storylines surrounding these players, but this is when it started to become a joke, the NBA draft. Only because, I'm finna say it, Anthony freaking Bennett was drafted to the Cleveland Cavaliers. We had Victor Oladipo, we had Otto Porter Jr., you had Cody Zeller, Alex Len, Nerlens Noel, Ben McLemore, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Trey Burke, CJ McCollum, Michael Carter-Williams, Steven Adams, Kelly Olynyk, Shabazz Muhammad, Giannis Antetokounmpo. I know he was drafted outside of the lottery, but I got to make mention of him. So now we start to see overall talent, for the most part, start to dwindle after that 2013 draft, because the one and done era starts to take, a hold. Even though players would, let me just stick to my original point. The storylines start to kind of get cloudy. Before we had storylines for, the number 1 through 14 pick in college, they were balling out, making immediate impacts, turning into superstar college players. And they carried that over for a couple of seasons or two in the NBA. And now we get to where it started to get cloudy for 1 through 14. I'm going to just go ahead and show you. Andrew Wiggins, Jabari Parker, Joel Embiid, Aaron Gordon, cloudy. Dante Exum, I remember the hype over him. Everybody, I wanted him to go to LA. And I think if he would have went to LA, he would have panned out a lot different than going to Utah, because he really wanted to go to LA. Utah was just a terrible organization. Marcus Smart, Julius Randle, Nick Stauskas, Noah Vonleh, Elfrid Payton, Doug McDermott, Dario Saric, Zach LaVine, TJ Warren. Granted, the storylines are still there for these players, but it's getting a little cloudy. Now we're going to move to 2015. We got Karl-Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, Jahlil Okafor, Kristaps Porzingis, Mario Hezonja, Willie Cauley-Stein, Emmanuel Mudiay, Stanley Johnson, Frank Kaminsky, Justice Winslow, Miles Turner, Trey Lyles, Devin Booker, Cameron Payne. And the reason why I'm saying it's getting cloudy is because these players that I'm naming, they didn't last as long as players did I only want to stay 1 year, I'm leaving. And before the one and done era started. Now it's getting cloudy. Jahlil Okafor didn't pan out. D'Angelo Russell bouncing around the league. Willie Cauley-Stein out of the league. Emmanuel Mudiay out. Stanley Johnson out. Frank Kaminsky out. Justice Winslow bouncing around, technically out. Miles Turner and Karl Anthony Towns, Devin Booker, Cameron Payne are like the only ones in the NBA right now still having somewhat of an impact. And I'm only saying that because Devin Booker and Cameron Payne, is he really making that much of an impact? He's not a starter. Much more of a junior. But you guys get my point. The one and done era has ruined the NBA draft and the storylines that were so exciting for us to keep watch of, to know and learn these players before they made it to the league. Now we get to the 2016 NBA draft. This is where it starts to get blinding. It's no longer cloudy. It's starting to get blinding. Ben Simmons, Brandon Ingram, Jaylen Brown, a hit. Dragon Bender, Chris Dunn, all of a sudden making an impact. But he's been in the league way too long to not have, some type of success. Buddy Hield, Jamal Murray is a champion, the only champion in his lottery class. Marquise Chris, oh my God, that was a miss. Jacob Patel, he's still in the NBA. Thon Maker, we thought he was about to go crazy. Domantas Sabonis, solid. Taurean Prince, Georgios Paka, the name was so bad, he ain't even last in the NBA. Denzel Valentine, the last, that play, when he was with Chicago, I was thinking to myself, what made the Bulls draft him? If I name all of the players out there, then you will see why. I'm not going to do it. Just look up the 2016 NBA draft. 2017 is getting even more blinding, but only because we had Lonzo Ball and Jason Tatum in his draft. Also, De'Aaron Fox. I'm going to put some respect on De'Aaron Fox. We had those players, and we stick it to ourselves. You know what? And only because they played at Kentucky, too. Let me get to it. Markelle Fultz, Lonzo Ball, Jason Tatum, Josh Jackson, De'Aaron Fox, Jonathan Isaac, Lauri Markkanen, Frank Ntilikina, still trying to figure out what the Knicks were thinking with that. Dennis Smith Jr., Zach Collins, Malik Monk, Luke Kennard, Donovan Mitchell, Bam Adebayo. Now, this draft had a lot of storylines, and it was exciting, but you can't have one draft out of like 15 or out of like, you can't have just one. It's got to be consistent. You got to get back to what it used to be. Now we're going to 2018. DeAndre Ayton, Marvin Bagley, Luka Doncic, Jaren Jackson Jr., Trae Young. The only reason why we remember this draft is because Luka, out of all people, were drafted, and we was like, what? And he was traded for Trae Young. That's the only reason why we remember this draft. Trae Young, Mo Bamba, Wendell Carter, Colin Sexton, Kevin Knox, Mikal Bridges, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, only bright spot, Miles Bridges, Jerome Robinson, Malcolm Porter Jr. Now, I say Shai Gilgeous is the only bright spot because he is an MVP champion. He's playing better than all of the players drafted other than him combined. That's even with Trae Young and Luka playing as good as they are. He's better than all of those players combined. He just proved it. Now, with that being said, the NBA draft is a joke. I don't even have to prove my point anymore because in the 2019 draft, Ja Morant popped on the scene. He just came out of nowhere. Nobody expected him to do what he did, but he did, and I give him credit for that. But you guys go through that draft, and you can kind of see my point. 2020, I ain't even finna go through that draft. You guys already know. 2021, 2022, 2024 was a mid-joke. Storyline surrounding these players. I bet you don't know one. Zachariah Richardson, Alex Sarr, Reed Shepard, Stephen Council, Ron Holland, blah, blah, blah. Terrible, terrible, terrible. These players are forgettable, and when they get to the NBA, we hear nothing else about them. We don't. It used to be when a rookie was in a league, we were asking questions and we were having debates about who is rookie of the year. Now we wait to the end of the season to see who is rookie of the year because these rookies aren't making impacts. And when it comes to rookie of the year, they're so freaking random. They're random. Like Stefan Castle, I know he's drafted in the lottery, but really? Look who was drafted before him. So Stefan Castle, Victor Wembanyama, Paulo Banchero, Scotty Barnes, random, LaMelo Ball, okay, Ja Morant, okay, Luka Doncic, Ben Simmons, Malcolm Brogdon. Man, the NBA is a joke. The NBA draft has turned into a watered down, one and done freak show. Sure going to be the number one overall pick. haven't been this sure of a number 1 overall pick since LeBron James. Now, with that being said, Duke freshman, 6'9", 221 pounds, for sure going to Dallas. I mean, it's ironic that Dallas trades Luka and they're rewarded with the number 1 overall pick. Isn't that insane? The NBA has become nothing but a soap opera. It's just a soap opera at this point in time, because when it first happened with Zion, when he was supposed to go to the Knicks, if I'm not mistaken, they finished with like the worst record or one of the worst records in the league. But it was like for sure he was supposed to go to the Knicks, and the Pelicans trade Anthony Davis, and they were rewarded with the number 1 overall pick, which turned out to be Zion Williamson. And from that point on, I knew the NBA was turning into a joke. And it's been going down ever since Kevin Durant decided to join the Golden State Warriors. Now, how do you let that happen, but David Stern vetoes Chris Paul going to join Kobe Bryant and Pau Gasol? It's crazy. The NBA is a joke. But back to the bright point of this particular topic. That is Cooper Flag. Cooper Flag reminds me a lot of Paul George in terms of his play style, not his mentality. Hopefully he doesn't turn out the way Paul. I don't know what happened to Paul George. When he was with the Indiana Pacers, Paul George was looking like a two-way beast, someone who could become a superstar. And as soon as he got traded, it just went all downhill from there. I think that trade kind of messed with him mentally, and he hasn't recovered since. And we got what we got with the Clippers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Crazy. Dylan Harper will be the second pick, possibly off the board. Rumored to go to the San Antonio Spurs, but the San Antonio Spurs at this point in time really need to consider trading that pick. When you look at their roster, they're already full of 6-foot guards. Dylan Harper is 6'5". What you gonna put him at, the 2 spot? You already got a rookie of the year that's at the 2 spot or the 3 spot. You got Devin Vassell, Steven Castle. It's weird with the Spurs. I don't know if those guys are interchangeable at the 2 guard and the 3 spot. But either way, he just doesn't make sense for the team simply because he's 6'5", and you already got De'Aaron Fox, you got Devin Vassell, you got Stephon Castle, who won Rookie of the Year. And he doesn't fit. What they need is someone to help out. I would say help out Victor Wembanyama in the backcourt. Because Harrison Barnes is old. Julian Champagnie, whatever. Hey, they need something. In my opinion, the Spurs really they got all they needed from the draft. Right now, they probably need to shop that number 2 overall pick around the league for a star veteran, an all-star veteran, a veteran that is all-star level. They probably should have traded for Kevin Durant, now that I think about it, even though I said Kevin Durant is a bad fit. But when you look at the roster for the Spurs, they got De'Aaron Fox, they got Vassell, they got Castle, they got Shohan, if I'm not mistaken, he starts at the 4, and then you got Victor Wembanyama. So the Spurs, if they don't shop that pick, I don't know why you would add another wing player to the roster when you already full of wings, but you can never have too many wings, I guess. With that being said, VJ Edgecombe out of Baylor, 6'5", another 6'5" player. Then you got Con Knopo, who I heard a lot watching, of course, Duke. You got Ace Bailey, which is ironic that they're probably the same in terms of wing play. And they got Ace Bailey being drafted after Con Knopo. That's weird to me, but that's what happens when you look at these draft boards to give you a good idea of where people or where players will end up. We got Trey Johnson at 6, Jeremiah Fears at 7. Okay, now I'm just throwing darts at the wall and hoping it lands on the bullseye. The NBA draft has become a joke. The NBA, in terms of overall watchability, has become a joke. To end this thing out, Now, you could probably call me ignorant or whatever the case may be, that the draft has now become boring. You guys remember, but I'm not that old. But I remember the NBA in its golden era. Right now, we're in a dark time in the NBA. It's not even fun to watch the NBA. It's not even that fun to talk about the NBA anymore. But let me make this point. Back when picks 1 through 14 was exciting to watch, and you knew every player by name. These last couple of years, since the one and done era, and thanks to John Calipari, because he destroyed the one and done era. Since the one and done era started, it's the NBA's fault. Had the NBA let players get drafted straight out of high school, simply because we need to see, and players need to be humble, because it's not that many LeBrons. It's not that many Kevin Garnett's. It's not that many Dwight Howards. I'm not saying Kobe, because Kobe wasn't a starter when he was drafted out of high school. He was actually carried by Shaq. But it's not that many players. So let these players get drafted. Remove that restriction. Now, I know you want to help the college game, but remove the restriction. You can always add it back if it doesn't benefit the game. But right now, it's hurting college basketball. It's hurting college. It's just hurting, man. I was about to say football, but then I remember football has so many more players and so many more opportunities. It feels like, but it could be even. If I'm not mistaken, football has more rosters, so it has more players. So players can afford to stay in college 1 or 2 seasons, or 3 seasons if they want. 4 heck. But now that I'm realizing these last couple of seasons, as the draft, the popularity or the household names of the top picks in the lottery are no longer household names. Out of the first couple of picks, we'll probably know a player or two. But after that, it's really no reason to even watch the draft like it used to be. When you had Anthony Davis coming out of the draft, you had Ben Simmons' class, you had Blake Griffin's class. It used to be exciting to watch 1 through 14 to see where they're going to end up. Now, when I look at 1 through 14, I'm not even sure who these players are, because the college, like I say, you could call me ignorant, but I'm not the only one that feel this way, and I'm not the only one that's going through this dilemma right now. Even when I watch the college game, it's exciting, trust me, but it's not. Maybe because I'm getting older. Now I don't sit down. No, it can't be that, because even when I didn't watch the college games, I knew 1 through 14. I knew what school they went to. I knew how they played. I knew whether they was good or not. It's the one and done era kind of ruined the NBA draft, and it's ruining the NBA as a whole, simply because they haven't allowed players to get drafted out of high school. If you allow players to get drafted out of high school, then if those players fail, whatever team they get drafted to, and they fail, and we see this constantly, then players will start to say, you know what, let me go the college route instead of trying to go to the NBA and possibly not panning out and